Hi everybody, welcome to episode 12 of Satellite 664. I'm one of your two co-hosts, Kaz Tagyan, and as always I'm joined by Mr. Steve Loopy Newhouse in Romford, Essex. Good day to you, sir.
Well, it's good afternoon. Well, you've had your day, I'm just starting mine. Episode 12 of hopefully of many more.
Yes. How you coping with lockdown, mate?
I'm kind of used to it. I mean, not being able to go out too far, without a walking stick. I do tend to spend a lot of time indoors, so this is normality.
Yeah,
Or some kind of normality.
Yeah, it's a very different world to that which we're used to. It's astounding how so many things that you took for granted before, whether it's eating dinner at a restaurant or going to the cinemas or going to a concert, has just completely transformed overnight. Everything that we were used to is completely transformed overnight, and we are living under such restrictions. I don't know about you, but we're restricted to public gatherings under 2 people. You need to have a valid reason as to why you're travelling, otherwise there's quite hefty fines if the police pull you over. And I can't believe only 3-4 weeks ago it was a totally different existence for a lot of us.
Yeah, I mean, we've been in actual lockdown for just on 2 weeks now. It's I mean, there's still a lot of controversy about who's, or like the social distancing thing. There was a post that I put up recently on my Facebook page. Dickie Bell, Maiden's old stage manager, complaining about joggers running past him, and not sort of keeping that distance. And I actually turned around at the time and thought that I know Dickie's sense of humour was phenomenal. The guy was one really, really funny guy, and it wouldn't have surprised me if he'd set the whole thing up. But the local press in Kent sort of got hold of this story, and all of a sudden Dickie's back in the headlines after all these years. It's great.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Dickie Bell was the tour manager for Maiden right through the 80s and up until, I believe, 2009 when he retired after the Somewhere Back in Time tour.
It was after Flight 666.
Yes.
He was on the video, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a Somewhere Back in Time tour, and he was pulled up for being out in public, and I think he gave the journalists a good dressing down, didn't he?
Yeah, in true Dickie Bell style.
Yeah. In true Dickie Bell style. But
good man.
It is a very difficult time for a lot of people. A lot of people are doing it tough on many different levels, and that's the beauty of doing this show. We are going to just forget about all that, and we're going to go back tonight to a wonderful period of 1986, 87.
Do that bit. Go back in time.
You look like Cindy Lauper or someone, one of her video clips.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, with a beard. Cindy Lauper with a beard.
But no, we're gonna go back to somewhere in time, somewhere on tour era, 86, 87, a wonderful, wonderful period in time. Great memories from the era myself. It's actually my favourite era of the band. My favourite album, favourite tour. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see it because. No, thank you, Loopy. Well, I remember clearly. Late 1986, it was announced that they would be visiting our shores in May of 1987. So And I do remember the conversations at the time that, me and my buddies were all going to go to the show. Lo and behold, May 1987 came, and there was no tour. And back in those days, there was no internet. The news travelled a lot slower. And we only found out about the tour being finished in, I think, Hit Parader magazine a couple of months later when they played the shows in Japan, and that was it. So it's, sadly, it's a sore point with me. I didn't get to see it.
And here we are 34 years later in the same scenario.
How so, mate?
But you're not going to get the tour this year, but at least you now know about it.
Yeah, well, in this age of internet and social media, news travels very, very, very fast. And the only difference is I've seen the Legacy of the Beast tour a number of times now, so it's a slightly different issue. But no, we're going to go back to that wonderful era, great memories for all of us, and speak about the tour. We're not going to speak about the album tonight. We're going to speak about the tour and tell the story of the tour through the merchandise. And why don't we kick it off with a friend of the show, Rasmus from Denmark, showcasing some of the more interesting collectibles from the 1986
Hello guys, it's Rasmus from Denmark. I'm here to talk a little about merchandise and collectibles from the Somewhere in Time era with Iron Maiden. As you can see, I brought out some of the cool stuff, and we're going to talk a little bit about it, okay? First of all, I would like to talk a little bit about the famous Somewhere in Time artwork that Dave Riggs did for Iron Maiden. Everybody knows the album cover. It's one of Iron Maiden's most famous album covers because there's so much stuff going on in that artwork. I know every fan likes to sit with that album cover just to find all the different small bits and pieces that's hidden inside that artwork. And I still love just sitting with the album cover looking at it. You can go online, find tons of info about the hidden stuff in that painting, and if you have not done it already, really want you to go there and take a look at that because it's super funny, some of the stuff that Dave Riggs put into that painting. A lot of stuff was not allowed actually to come on the final outcome of the album cover. He had a lot of ideas, and I actually have a sketch drawing of how it was supposed to be. Here you can see one of the first draft that Riggs did for the Somewhere in Time album cover, and Eddie had long hair, he had a t-shirt and trousers on. He was not a cyborg at all. Later they changed that. You can see spaceships over here from famous movies like Star Wars and Star Trek. That was later deleted from the piece because of trademark reasons, so they couldn't do that. Another fun small thing in the artwork is if you look in the corner on the album cover, the street name is actually Acacia Avenue from the famous Maiden song, but on the test it was actually Oogle Street, and most of you have no idea what Oogle Street is, and when I first saw it I have no idea, but then one day I got this cool invite for a party Maiden did, a listening party for the album cover, and when I looked at that I could see that Iron Maiden management were actually located in London at Oogle Street, so just a fun little thing. And also for you collectors out there who want to try to find some cool stuff, the invite for Somewhere in Time, very cool piece. Just here at last I wanted to talk about a little fun thing, the album cover. This is by the way a LP cover from Argentina. Fun because the colors are different and the text Somewhere in Time is in different writings, so also fun for the collectors to try and find those things. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the cyborg hand. Down in the corner you have Eddie has killed some cyborg, and you can see his hand is here. A fun thing about that hand is actually Dave Riggs put that in a lot of different Iron Maiden artworks. So here's a task for you guys to try and find as many Iron Maiden covers singles and LPs, where that hand is. I will start by telling you it's in the Stranger in the Strange Land picture. It's also there. And you will also see it on the Trooper. In the foreground there's this hand. So let's see how many you can find. I will help you a little bit. There's over 10. Thank you.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Thank you, Rasmus.
Cheers, Raz. Nice one.
Yeah, I just love that collection. I really do. All right, let's kick it off. Somewhere on tour. 151 shows from September 1986 right up until May 1987. Basically spanning 3 continents, so Europe, North America, Japan, and finishing off in Japan on May 21st. The set list on those shows was, I think, amongst one of the best. I mean, Maiden being Maiden, they always represent the new album very, very well. And out of the 8 songs on that album, they represented 5 out of the 8 songs, and on one of the shows they actually did 6 out of the 8. So that was in the first show of the tour in Belgrade, Yugoslavia, which is now Serbia. They played the Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, and that was the only show that song was played at. That was never to be played again. I guess having listened to it on sort of the old bootleg, I don't think it translated well to a live setting, because the Summer in Time album was very much, bass synths, guitar synthesizers, and while some of the songs like Wasted Years and Heaven Can Wait work remarkably well, some of the other songs like Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, obviously, Sea of Madness, even the opening track Caught Somewhere in Time, they didn't quite translate as well as they should have, and I think interestingly enough, that's probably why they haven't played it since then. And yet, Wasted Years and Heaven Can Wait have stood the test of time.
Well, yeah, there could be multiple reasons why they haven't sort of used those songs. Going back to that one particular instance in Belgrade, it could have been a case of they've had a bad response.
After one show, they dropped that song.
Yeah, maybe Michael Kenny's synths were out of tune, or who knows. But yeah, over the years, I mean, you can understand why certain things get dropped. When was the last time they played? I was going to say Rothschild, but they play that all the bloody time. Prowler. Sanctuary,
2005, I believe. Prowler.
Another Life.
2005.
Yeah, Another Life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably go back and list a lot of stuff off the first 2 albums that they don't play anymore.
Well, they did that on the Early Days tour. That was the whole purpose of the Early Days tour. And I remember Bruce actually said this might be the last time we ever play these songs. So It may have been the same issue, same deal with those Somewhere in Time songs, where we heard, we heard them for the first and last time.
Well, the thing is, I mean, we actually brought this up in an earlier episode about the fact that they'd done up to the 88, but they've never done anything from 88 to present. It's just like completely forgetting about everything pre-88. That would be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, I would love to see this album, the Summer in Time album, represented. I know a lot of fans would love to see this album represented, but you get the impression it's not the band's favourite album. I know Bruce, he wrote a lot of songs. A lot of them were folksy songs, and clearly they were never going to make it. And Martin Birch was never going to let some of those acoustic-based songs ever make it on the album, and that's why a lot of his songs were left off. whereas Adrian had, a very strong representation on the album with 3 out of the 8. So it was an interesting impasse at where the band was at that time. I remember reading a lot of the magazine articles at that time. They described the summer on tour as a very stress-free, very enjoyable tour. They had a much bigger stage space to run around in and play in, and you'd think that they had recovered from the burnout from 84, 85, from the World Slavery Tour, which is very well documented.
But they'd also learned from that tour what they wanted and what they didn't want. They've now gone to the bigger stage, so they're now playing arenas everywhere, stadiums even, and they obviously realised that that's where they wanted to be. No longer going back to the places like Hammersmith or Brixton Academy. It's progression, I suppose. And again, considering the band had only been on the road for 8 years at that point. It's not even 8 years. It's 7.
Yeah. Now, out of the two of us, you saw the tour in '86.
Basically all I saw was the 6 shows they did at Hammersmith Odeon.
Only the 6 shows.
And how many did you see, guys?
Thank you, Luke. Thank you. This is going to run throughout the episode, guys. So Luke is going to hang it on me.
I'm going to hold my hands up now and say that was the last. That was the last time, right? Until next time. But yeah, I only saw the shows at Hammersmith. Because of the company I work for, Stage Miracles, we were supplied by promoters. The promoters would call our office and say, right, I'm going to need 20 people at this time, that venue, and we'd be there. And I was either the crew boss in charge of that crew, or I went down as a liaison. And it was my job to sort of make sure that things between the Maiden crew and the local stage crew went smoothly. I think it's jobs for the boys. If they can get somebody else paid that didn't really have to be there, that's what they used to do. And because I knew the guys, not just the band, but I also knew most of the crew as well. It was the obvious thing to do. Basically every time Maiden played in London, I was there. Right up until 95 when I actually left. After that, there was a period when I didn't know what the band were doing up until sort of the late 2010s, or the early 2010s. But yeah, so I was there for all 6 shows, working with the local crew. First day was a loading that started at 7 a.m. It was only like 4 trucks, but Dickie Bell being Dickie Bell, the whole thing was very well organised. They'd unload 1 truck, so that would be the lighting equipment and the rigging. All the motors would be pulled up into the air. The rigging was attached. The lighting rig was attached to the motors. That would go up in the air. Then the PA would come in. That would be built. And at the same time the PA was coming in, the backline set, or the back stage set, would come in, and that was being built. And then the backline was the last thing to come in. The flooring was laid down, and it was well organised. And we started at 7, and I think we managed to lay off half of our crew by 1 p.m. because everything was done.
Now, other than being hometown gigs, that week at Hammersmith, which in itself is phenomenal effort to sell out 6 shows in a week in the one venue. But there's a couple of notable things, notable incidents or events rather occurred. The very first day when you guys loaded in on the 3rd of November was the Jim Will Fix It.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell us about Jim Will Fix It? What was it? What was a show about? And what actually transpired?
Jim Fix-It was a lovely man, Jimmy Savile. We all know that name. Basically,
not for the right reasons. Not for the right reasons.
Unfortunately, the bugger got away with it. Bugger. Careful how I use that. Basically, people like kids would write in and ask Jim to help them out, doing something for them. So basically, he would make dreams come true. And on this particular occasion, a young lad called Dominic Lawson, he contacted Jim and asked if he could be a roadie for Iron Maiden for the day. And so the cameras came down. They just happened to choose that day, November the 3rd, day of the loading, which is it's probably one of the busiest times. They could have chosen any other time, but from a certain time, that the band are going to be there. During the rest of the week, the band didn't turn up so early. They didn't need the sound check because everything had been done by Doug on the first day. So it seemed obvious that if they were going to do something like that, then loading day was the day to do it. So the filming started early afternoon, and
my all-time favourite soundtrack song, Flash from Queen. From the Flash Gordon soundtrack.
I tended not to sort of take much notice of what was going on. We'd had cameras in the Odeon before. We knew what it was all about. We'd done things with Tears for Fears, all manner of stuff that we'd been filmed doing. But on this particular occasion, Dom was taken into the production office and told how things worked. We came out on stage and sort of generally helped out, especially with the back line, like Bill and I can't remember who was working the other side, but Billy Barkley was doing the guitars for Dave. And Bill would say to him, right, we're going to put that there. So Dom would help him put that there. And then we're going to do this and we're going to put that there. And again, like Dom would help him out, because normally that would be down to one of the stage hands to do that. But we're not like the Americans. Over in the UK, we're hands-on. We don't do. We're not like, as I said, we're not like the Americans where you can't touch anything unless your union rep says so. I never understood that. So yeah, basically Don was there, like replacing one of our lads who probably went off to the pub. Who knows? But yeah, as I said, like they were sort of following Dom around with the cameras, and Dom sort of managed to sit behind the drum kit with Nico. Nico was showing him how to tune the drums, and he'd say, right, go round. And they were sort of generally doing the sound check, and then Dougie Hall out front would go, no, that sounds like crap, or yeah, that's fine. And then it came to a bit of downtime. Everybody used to have their dinner around about, it used to sort of around sort of 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, late afternoon and evening. And they needed people to sit around the dining table so they could film Dom eating his dinner. And so you got, I would go around the table, like you had Dominic at one end of the table, and sitting directly opposite the other end of the table was Pyro Pete. And I've really got to find out what happened to that guy. I've no idea what happened to him. And then to Dominic's left was Dave Lights. Sitting next to Dave Lights was Chris Lang. He was one of the lighting crew, but he was also a spotlight operator. And then on the other side of Dom's right, was Billy Barkley, who Dom had actually sort of been helping out, and myself. They needed me to go in there just to sort of make the numbers up, full table, make it look like it was really busy. And so Dominic had this plate of food put in front of him, man. Off he went. He chucked it in like it was roast beef, roast lamb, veg, potatoes and veg. And I think either the rest had already eaten or were due to eat later. But I was asked to sort of be there and not touch a thing. I didn't have a dinner put in front of me. I wasn't even offered a drink. Yeah, it was ridiculous. If you wanted your own drink, sort of get up and sort of do it yourself. You weren't entitled to soft drinks because that was a band or crew. So if you wanted a soft drink, you had to go to the shop round the corner and buy your own. Yeah, trust me, that's the way it was. But yeah, so they had. I think we were actually in there for about 20, 25 minutes being filmed. You know, where like Billy was talking to Dom and sort of trying to get his reaction while he was stuffing his face. And there is a funny moment when Billy started like passing him sauces, brown sauce, ketchup, mint sauce, and then another bottle of ketchup, and then another bottle of brown sauce. Like Dominic all of a sudden he's got his plate, and he was just now surrounded by a sort of wall of bottles. It was it was funny. After that, I'm not really sure what happened to Dominic. I seem to remember he got introduced by Bruce when the band were on stage, but other than that, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's all on YouTube. If you
oh, is it right? Okay.
Yeah, in fact there's a whole 10-minute video of basically a summary of everything you just said on a YouTube video, and it's the only known live footage of the Hammersmith shows, which is incredible. But yeah, it shows basically everything from load-in to that dinner table scene that you're just talking about, to when Bruce called him on stage and said something to the effect of, "This is Dominic Lawson. He's 14 years old and he needs a girlfriend," or something.
Yeah,
something like that. So. But now they also too the at the end of the week. So on the sixth and final show which was the end of the European tour, that was a charity show, and that was raising money for an organisation called the NSPCC. Now, who were the NSPCC, Loopy?
The NSPCC is it's the National Society for the Protection of Cruelty to Children, or Prevention of Cruelty to Children. I don't know when they were set up. I mean, I remember Esther Ranson doing a program called That's Life, so talking about the NSPCC. You're talking back in the 70s, so they've been around for quite a while. But yeah, we touched on this briefly before we actually went on air, and to be honest, I don't remember anything about that particular show. I've got nothing in my diary that even mentions it, and yet I did all 6 shows, and I don't know. All I know is that.
So that was the late afternoon show. It started. I think the show started at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m.
Let me go back to my trusty diary of that time. So what he actually says here is Iron Maiden 1 p.m. reset, loadout started at 6:45 p.m. and finished at midnight. So does that mean they did an earlier show and then we were done by midnight and everybody went home?
I'm not sure.
So I can't remember.
My understanding is they started late afternoon, so normally they'd start at 9 o'clock or whatever, 9 p.m.
Yeah, 8:30 usually.
Yeah, they started a few hours earlier than that, and then I think it was off to the end of the tour party. But and we're showing
I was there.
You were there.
I was there.
Yes, you were. That's every time you make me jealous about this tour.
Yeah, sorry, mate. So
we're going to ring a bell. We're going to ring a bell. We're going to ring a bell or something. Yeah. Have you got a bell on your end? Oh, there you go. There you go. It's all set up. It's all set. Is that glass going to get a thumping? Is it tonight? No. So and there was a special T-shirt made for that show, which we're showing now. Which was unique to that show only. It was an event shirt. I guess which
don't remember that shirt at all.
Yeah, which
That's
highlighted the very nature of the tour, of what they were trying to achieve during that show with
the
fun.
beast.
The what?
The nature of the beast.
Nature of the beast.
See, got to get it in there.
That's it. But all in all, the European and UK tour was quite uneventful. Other than Bruce complaining about diarrhea during the Eastern European shows, the real only hiccup they had was in October, where Bruce got the flu. He was quite sick. He became unwell during the 2 Sheffield shows, and actually played the second Sheffield show sick as a dog, and which is actually on video, that show. So the show after that at Gaumont Hall in Ipswich was cancelled, and that's a famous sort of event because the fan club made available a very exclusive signed promo poster of Wasted Years to all the concert goers, and we're showing that now here, accompanied by a letter from Keith Wilford, and that has become arguably one of the most sought after collectibles in basically the world of Iron Maiden.
Right, so that was handed out just like the ticket payers, the ticket buyers.
Correct.
So you're talking Gaumont around about 2,200. So
Yeah.
say there might have been a few spare. Call it 2,500. It's no wonder that's so sought after. You think about the millions of fans there are now, and there's only 2,500 of that particular poster made.
Yeah,
That's phenomenal.
Well, and we don't know how many of them are surviving, as in how many copies of that poster are actually surviving. I mean, I only know 2 or 3 people that actually own one, and I'm one of them.
Well, okay, I mean, that's a classic. Leave your comments here. If there's anybody out there that has got one of these and would like to show us a picture of it, leave your comment below or put it on our Facebook page.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Did you have a ticket to see them at Gaumont Hall in Ipswich?
Yeah. Well, show us your ticket.
Yeah.
Show us your ticket. Get your tickets out. Get your tickets out.
We're going to show all 6 of your working passes from the Hammersmith shows. So now let's tell some more stories about this. It was, as I said, Europe, UK were very uneventful, and then they crossed the pond and went to North America, to the United States, and some quite interesting merchandise came out of that leg of the tour. In the World Slavery Tour, they got into the habit or the practice of producing event shirts, and in particular showing Eddie very much with famous landmarks. So for San Francisco, it was pictured with the Golden Gate Bridge, etc. For the Somewhere on Tour era in '87, those certain specific North American shows, they showed Eddie very much integrated and assimilated in the local culture. And here are some examples of this. So for the New York City or the New York area concerts, where they played the Madison Square Garden and the Meadowlands Arena, they basically showed Eddie dressed up in a New York Giants football jersey, and again, it was an example of Eddie being part of the environment, part of that local scene of where the band was playing. But that shirt also tells some other stories. There's a very famous incident in Madison Square Garden where somebody threw a firecracker, or an M80 firecracker, up on the stage, and Bruce was completely stunned. It was during Rome of the Ancient Mariner. The band kept on playing and this is on YouTube, you can actually see the clip. The rest of the boys are sort of towards the back of the stage, and they're just playing along. Bruce was at the front of the stage, and you can see he was stunned, and he basically said, you know, who the F threw that? And kind of walked over to the back of the stage and completely stopped singing. Now, whether he wanted to walk off or he was just sort of stunned with the shock of it, I think maybe a combination of the two. But never understood why people threw stuff on stage.
Or why they even take these things to a gig. You know, if you're going to take it, then it's in your head to throw it. So what kind of mentality is that?
Thank God it doesn't happen anymore. But in those days...
Well, security's a lot tighter now anyway, isn't it? So
yeah, look, post sort of...
When we went to Brooklyn, I mean, me being a smoker, I was allowed to keep my cigarettes, but they took my lighter away and threw it in the bin. You're not even allowed to take a lighter in the place.
Yeah. Look, we're in the sort of post 9/11 world where security, and rightfully so, is at a much higher level, and it's astounding that in those days people would take firecrackers and God knows what else, chains and everything else into the venues. But the other incident that is quite notorious is at the Meadowlands Arena in New Jersey, where this was 30th of March 1987, and there was a quite a destructive riot that went on after the show, from about 11 p.m. to about 1 a.m. After the show. There was about 33 youths, really wired up. God knows what they were on, but they started quite a large riot, and that was quite big in the media. It made the news, and there's some really interesting things that quotes from public figures, and I'm gonna read something from the mayor of East Rutherford, New Jersey. He said, and I quote, "I think they ask for trouble when they book some of these groups because of the type of people that follow these groups." That's us, right? They, in other words, the people who put the show on,
Promoters.
are almost a party to this rioting when they book them in the first place. And it goes on to say that the arena were reconsidering sort of barring groups that perform heavy metal, a hard-driving rock and roll characterized by screeching vocals, thunderous percussion, and wailing guitars.
Now, what comes to mind, quite simply, is they've pigeonholed heavy metal as being like a bad thing to have. Was there a history of riots at heavy metal gigs at the Meadowlands?
I don't believe so, no.
No, exactly. So this was a one-off event, and all of a sudden everybody else has been pigeonholed. They're talking out their asses, obviously.
Look, I mean, riots and trouble. I mean, that doesn't really occur in the UK or Europe. Certainly not back then. But they did occur in North America. I mean, there's the.
Well, again, there's 33 people. It's a minority when you've got a crowd of approximately 18,000. 33 people. You know, it's a minority. But on the upside, it's publicity.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. But I mean, there's also other riots that have happened in American concerts, namely the Guns N' Roses. There's a famous riot there. Metallica. So it's not unheard of, but certainly in Europe and the UK, I mean, that sort of stuff never really went on. I guess the venues were a lot smaller too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was the incident, should I say, of Maiden at Donington.
Oh yeah.
When
88.
Guns N' Roses, 88, and Guns N' Roses were on stage, and apparently a young lad lost his life.
Yeah, no, we're going to cover
but
this.
That wasn't due to riot.
No, that was more of
It's just like crowd surge.
a crowd
You've got
surge plus
good
inclement weather. We're going to cover that in huge detail when we do the 1988 era, when we cover that. But this was a little bit different. Now,
Yeah.
telling you more about Eddie being at one with his environment, the Canada event shirt is really, really cool, and it shows Eddie as a ice hockey player. Again, ice hockey is arguably the biggest sport in Canada. Canadians are crazy about ice hockey, and here we see Eddie in a kit, again kitted up in a sporting team's jersey, and this is the Edmonton Oilers. Now, the Edmonton Oilers were the champion team that won the championship in Canadian ice hockey in 1987, and I guess one of the big famous players was a gentleman called Wayne Gretzky, who well, you and I don't know anything about that because we're not from that part of the world and we're not into ice hockey. But again,
Can you just spell his surname for me?
Grettsky.
Gretzky, so
Yes.
not Gretzky. Yeah. Okay. No worries.
Yeah. And again, I guess producing these shirts, these bits of merchandise, were very much appealing to the local fans. And this is, I guess, we can see the practice of specific event shirts being made to this day really do stem from that era, from that sort of World Slavery Somewhere on Tour era, and it's been a consistent.
I did wonder where it all started. So you just explain that. So yeah,
it all came from here. The Texas event shirt is an amazing shirt, and here we see Eddie dressed up as Clint Eastwood on the event shirt, and have a look where they got the idea from. They got it directly ripped from the image of Clint Eastwood in the movie The High Plains Drifter.
So that's one of my favourite films.
High Plains Drifter.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah. So I mean, Eddie was Clint Eastwood in Stranger in a Strange Land, and he's Clint Eastwood again on the Texas event shirt. Now, probably one of my favourite event shirts, maiden shirts ever, which is why I'm actually wearing it tonight, is the Florida 1987 shirt, and this has Eddie in a white suit, sort of boat shoes without socks, and he is none other than Don Johnson from Miami Vice.
Ed Johnson.
Ed Johnson. Yeah, so everyone remembers Miami Vice with Crockett and Tubbs, I think they were called.
I mean, that.
Yeah, well, look, I assume our audience is on the slightly older side, like us. So we would know Miami Vice very well. But in case there's younger fans watching the show, Miami Vice was a hugely popular TV show that ran from 84 to 1990. And around 86, 87, it really hit its peak. And it was about two sort of undercover police officers who walked around in immaculate suits and looked like sort of pin-up guys, which the girls always liked. And
could you imagine Eddie driving around in a speedboat?
Well, he did.
Just a thought.
Well, he did, because he was Don Johnson. He was Don Johnson.
Ed Johnson. He was
Ed Johnson, yeah. And you can see on this shirt the logo, the Iron Maiden logo, is very different. It's the Miami Vice sort of font that they were using. And if anybody remembers watching the show, Don Johnson's character had used to keep an alligator on his boat. And that alligator, whose name was Elvis, by the way, is pictured on this shirt. And I just think this is one of the coolest shirts ever. I just love it. I just love it. It typifies.
It's different.
It's different. It typifies Iron Maiden's sense of humour, and again, it places Eddie in that environment, which is, sunshine, blue skies, Miami, beach, women in bikinis, and I just love it. Any comments about Ed Johnson, Loopy?
To be perfectly honest, I remember the program, but didn't actually watch it. I don't think I did.
I never watched it. It was to me.
So I answer your question. No comment.
Yeah, it was a show that it was a show that a lot of the trendy girls at school used to watch. It wasn't really something that the average Maiden fan would be really into, I suppose. What were we into?
Girls. I never went to a mixed school. I went to a boys' school. We were the same as Steve and Deano, and it was Phil Collin.
Did you guys go to a boys' school?
Yeah.
Was it a private school or a public school?
Public boys' school. But we all went to the same school. Steve was a year older than me, and I was a year older than Paul and Phil Collin. But all at the same school at the same time.
Wow. And Phil went to Def Leppard.
Yeah.
Steve and Deano went Maiden.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Finishing off now, moving on to California. Now that this is the California event shirt. A little bit boring. It's really just the Stranger in Strangeland Eddie in a big circle. I don't think they put a whole lot of thought into this particular shirt. But one violent incident that comes to mind on the California shows is when the opening act was playing. Now, the opening act was called Vinnie Vincent Invasion. Now, Vinnie Vincent was the ex-Kiss guitarist who replaced Ace Frehley, made his own solo band, and they opened for Maiden in the early stages of the Somewhere in Time tour. Now, it was a very unlikely pairing because we're going to show a picture of the Vinnie Vincent Invasion now, and as you can see, they look very, very glammed up, extremely glammed up. Not a very appropriate pairing.
Yeah, as I say, this is not an Iron Maiden show.
No.
Far from it.
Far from it. So the one night during one of the shows, the drummer Bobby Rock was doing a drum solo, and a bottle of whiskey basically came hurling from the crowd onto the stage and actually hit him in the side, and he started bleeding quite profusely. I think he's said since then it's probably due to the fact that they had a very glammy image that didn't fit the billing between the two bands. But again, it sort of underpins how far we've come and how things have changed. That back in those days, you could walk into a venue with a full bottle of whiskey, drink it, get completely drunk, and then throw the bottle onto the stage and actually hurt someone.
It's mind blowing. Well, okay, it was a long time ago, but nowadays when you think of it, what security is like now, it's how do you get into these places with these things?
Loopy, was it in England, in the UK? Did people used to walk in with bottles of alcohol into the venue and sort of get drunk in the venue?
Not that I remember.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I remember back in those days seeing shows.
I mean, most venues had a bar,
yeah,
or there was a pub really, really close. In which case, people would go to the pub first, and then they'd go into the venue, hit the bar, have a few drinks, go and see the support band. The support band finishes, you've got half an hour to go and have another drink, and then go back and watch the main band. And that was pretty much it. If anybody was going to turn up with anything, it was either a poster or an album that they wanted signing on the off chance, and they get to meet the band. But no, I really can't think of any sort of alcohol or fireworks or weapons or anything being taken into venues.
So why do you think it happened in the US more so than anywhere else, or exclusively than anywhere else? What's your theory, Lucy?
Theory. I don't know. I really don't know. They have a gun law. Nobody else really has a gun law. Maybe if they think that because they have guns, they can do whatever they bloody want. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, it's an interesting historical question. Yeah, back then, these things used to happen in certain parts of the world, concerts, and never in other parts of the world as concerts.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I mean, saying about the gun law, I mean, it just makes me wonder, back in those days, how many people actually took guns to concerts?
What, guns to concerts?
Oh yeah, I mean, everybody's walking about with like a hit gun.
That's a question for our American friends to answer, because I mean, we both come from.
Is it allowed? I mean, was it ever allowed? Who knows?
Well, I mean, let's pose the question to our American viewers, because that's something completely alien to you and me.
Yeah.
I mean, both of us live in countries with quite rigid laws with ownership of firearms, and I mean, back in the 80s, you just did not. They were obviously not legal, but you didn't certainly go to shows with them or any sort of weapons.
No, I'm not saying they did go to shows with them. I'm just wondering if they did, were they allowed to? Answers down below, please.
Please. Because we learn a lot. We learn a lot by doing this show.
It teaches us.
That's right. And as I said, we've got a global audience, so people would know. Very good. And that is it. Somewhere in Time, Somewhere on Tour. Well, we haven't done the Somewhere in Time part of it because, oh boy, that's a deep analysis of the album that I'd like to do at some point, preferably with somebody who was, in the studio or someone who was there. But that's, in a nutshell, that's the story of the tour. It was a terrific moment in time. It was sandwiched between the biggest tour that they'd ever done and arguably the pinnacle of their career. The pinnacle of the classic period, which was the Seventh Son era. So, actually, Loopy, here's a question. When people say the classic era of Iron Maiden, what do you classify or consider as the classic years of the band? And remember, we've got 40 years to choose from here.
Classic.
I put you on the spot with this one, haven't I?
Yeah, thanks, mate. 6-0. See what I did there?
Is there a tour I've seen? Hang on, ring the bell. You got to ring the bell.
Oh, hang on.
6-0. Is there a tour you've seen? Sorry, that I've seen that you haven't seen?
Probably lots.
I think the only one that comes to mind is Fear of the.
I don't care.
I know you don't.
No, right. So let's go back to me being put on the spot. Right, the term classic to me means in the past, but not recent past. We're talking past. So it would have to be. I would have said like Peace of Mind. I mean that to me was a classic tour, classic lineup. Yeah.
And when do you think?
Or you can go back before that, like with Diano and Dennis.
So
again.
Yeah, so you would consider that the classic era, and rightly so. When do you think the classic era ended?
I think when Adrian left.
So 1990.
Yeah.
So I've got a slightly different slant on this. I think the classic era of the band, and I'm defining classic as the era that sort of the fans look on to with, the most fondness. I'd put it starting as a Number of the Beast era and actually ending when Bruce left the band. In other words, the entire first phase of Bruce, starting with a Number of the Beast, ending with Fear of the Dark. In other words, it started with a number one album, and funnily enough, it ended with a number one album. And yes, people say that 1990 onwards they were in decline. They actually weren't. They were still one of the biggest bands around. They were still making pretty strong music, and they were still commercially very successful. So for me, it started in '82, and it ended in '92, I guess. 93 they were very much in decline, and now I think what we're seeing is the what I call the Renaissance sort of period, where this sort of post-reunion era with Adrian and Bruce now having been back for over 20 years now. I think this is the almost like very much a renaissance, a post-classical renaissance.
So I have to agree. I mean, seeing them as a six-piece now is. When I was working for them, obviously five was, it was always five members. Now, having seen them several times as a six-piece and seeing how well that works and how full their sound is now, trying to remember back to the good old days, it's hard work. Yeah, I mean, there are live albums out there to listen to. There are bootleg